They had never seen anyone choked unconscious, allegedly, in case anyone's listening. So they'd never seen that before. What they'd seen was, when you put it across their throat and they're just like,
yeah.
This guy legit was allegedly like sleeping. So the guy, after, they thought I killed the guy, and I said, no. And I shook his legs and I kick him in the heels. And then of course he woke up and he didn't want no part of that. That's the start of a relationship. So like, why can't I not just be on a podcast with like 2 or 3 of these, like, big names?
Oh man, I'd love to see that.
And say, like, you're full of shit. Yeah. Because I will say, okay, let's do self-defense, and you can kill me. What better challenge, right? I won't, but I'll say, I guarantee you, I'll sign a contract. I will not kill you. I will sign the contract and say, I will not try to kill you, but you can kill me. You reality-based guy, you can kill me. And we're going to sign a contract, and we're going to go to an island that allows us to do it. And they don't have any resistance training. Like, they didn't fight. They don't grapple. They don't wrestle. They don't kickbox. No Muay Thai. No wrestling. No judo. No blue belt. Nothing. Who you gonna put your money on? So I've been doing kind of like security, pit fighting. Like, I was retarded. I can't. Actually, at our schools, we don't. I'm really proud of that. I never tell someone, don't bring your ego. I don't have those kind of conversations. I just say, when you come, everyone learns. And if you've come to hurt someone here, you will get hurt. And in the old days, I would have just kicked the shit out of you. But I'll get charged and go to jail now. So I'm not going to kick the shit out of you. I'm just going to kick you out. Okay. But know that I really want to kick the shit out of you.
And welcome back to another Tactical Podcast. This is going to be Tactical Podcast number 30. We're here today with Samir Seif. And Samir he's got a really interesting resume. He's actually got 27 years in the security industry. He retired in 2018, 5 years of risk assessment, and again, retired in 2018. Threat pattern recognition, PPCT, use of force instructor, which is pretty cool. So with his combat sports career, which is very, very extensive and interesting, he's actually a Muay Thai coach, pro and former champion Muay Thai retired fighter, and boxing coach, pro boxer, retired, judo brown belt, wrestling coach, BJJ black belt. His martial arts career, to name a few, includes Arnis, MBC2 advanced instructor, Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Wing Chun black sash, JKD instructor. Samir has run the gamut from law enforcement security industry to combat sports to self-defense and self-preservation, reality-based combatives. So it is a gosh damn pleasure to sit down with you today, Samir. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to shoot in there. Thanks for the introduction. But I don't want anyone to think that I walk around with that list. I know where I stand in reality. That's just I started in some of those arts, and of course there's always an evolution. I've evolved, so my head's not big.
I can see that from sitting down and talking with you 5 minutes before the podcast, man. You're a very humble guy, and to be honest, every serious killer I've ever met in my time, and I've met a few, they're the nicest guys. You'd never know that they were capable of choking you out in 2 seconds flat. So I know you and I were talking before the podcast, and you mentioned that before you got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you were actually studying Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, which is something I find incredibly fascinating. And I know that in the Jiu-Jitsu community, modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community, there's really not too much awareness and knowledge of what actually Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is. Can you give us a little bit about what exactly Japanese Jiu-Jitsu is versus Brazilian BJJ?
Yes, actually, there's one big factor that separates Japanese jiu-jitsu or traditional jiu-jitsu from BJJ is that we have formalized attacks. So like you have an uki and a tori. Those are the Japanese terms for like the receiver of the technique and the executioner of the technique. So I could be at that time, even say I was, I think, a second degree black belt early in the 90s, and I was moving around with blue belts, and they were just like messing me up on the ground because they do resistance training. I do preset training, which means you grab my shirt, I grab your wrist, I do the lock, I chop you in the neck, I sweep you. You don't have the same type of resistance that you do. So it's just like the theory is if I keep doing the moves over and over, when someone grabs my shirt, I'm just going to do it. And I mean, it kind of works, but it's not stress tested. So, but on the other hand, if I stood up with someone, even with traditional jiu-jitsu, that includes striking. So anything that looks kind of Japanese style, like karate style, like reverse punching and blocking, jiu-jitsu has that. So we would do punching. The Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys at that time were very poor kickers and punchers. They didn't go outside of jiu-jitsu. They just wanted to close the gap, take you down, and then as they say, when you come down on the ground, you're swimming with sharks, so to speak. So Japanese jiu-jitsu has very little back then. A lot has changed now, which is something we could talk about too. But in the time I was doing Japanese jiu-jitsu, not a lot of sparring and resistance. And so we have a lot of locks to offer, a lot of like security style, like what would be great for restraints, hammer locks, wrist locks, finger locks, thumb locks, neck cranks, all this stuff, but it's just never trained with resistance. So that would have been the main divider. Now that divider has completely changed. Like if you do jiu-jitsu and you don't roll, first off, you don't roll, for people that don't know what rolling is, like scrimmaging with resistance. And if you're not including like some other types of fighting where you can punch and kick, if you're doing like a freestyle, kind of like an MMA style, I don't know what to say. That's like driving a 1940s car when you could be driving a new car. It doesn't make sense why you would do that.
Now, you said that a lot's changed in Japanese jiu-jitsu now. How so?
Well, they've introduced rolling. So if I go to any school that says they do jiu-jitsu, even though they don't do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the biggest avenue for the sport is to go out to these competitions, which is just grappling. Plus you have sport jiu-jitsu, which has gone through an evolution as well. So sport jiu-jitsu would, the guy's name that comes to mind is Ernie Boggs. He's from the States. He's really pushed sports jiu-jitsu. And so they have punching and kicking. So almost like a continuous or point style, depending on your age and your level, until you get to an almost MMA style without like knees and elbows and, like a much watered down version of like an amateur for athletes to do. That's not dangerous. And in sport jiu-jitsu, they'll grapple on the ground for like 30 seconds. As opposed to Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But the evolution of jiu-jitsu is that Japanese jiu-jitsu people have integrated all the things that were needed from Brazilian jiu-jitsu except one thing, and that is the one thing that makes the difference, which is the mindset. And when people say, oh man, there's no difference, we do arm bars, they do arm bars, we do triangle chokes, they do, they're missing it. It's the mindset. In the Brazilian mindset, where the teacher is not the master because he's the master. He's the master because he can do it. Like he gets down on the mat and he can do it. And yes, we all get older, and I'm not expecting to be able to, absolutely crush the 25-year-old that's 250 pounds or, like I have to be realistic. But at the same time, I can get down on the mats. Like I can do it with resistance. Like, I think there's a huge difference between the mindset that I hold my position because of the black belt that says I have, whatever degrees, and the black belt that's earned because you can scrimmage and beat, generally speaking, belts below you. Like I wasn't advancing. Like when I was a blue belt, I didn't advance until I was starting to overcome purple belts, right? It was a good way to measure. But when I was in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, I got my next degree because 2 years had gone by, right. And I learned the curriculum. I was able to do the curriculum very well. And then the next degree, because of time put in and what I did for the community, or how many black belts I've produced. I mean, there are different criteria, where I think in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, the criteria is you got to do it. Like, if you tell me pardon me?
You got to be tough in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You got to actually fight. Yeah.
It's really hard to be fake in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Fake Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys get called out all the time.
Yeah.
Like, they get called out all the time. So, like, if you come to my school and we're rolling around and you just, like, beating the shit out of me, like, I better have, like, COVID-19, 2 new hip replacements, an amputated arm. Like, there's got to be a pretty good reason why you're kicking the shit out of me. Like, it's just not normal to go into a school and you're not a high level and you're kicking the shit out of the teacher.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. It's not all about, like, being able to beat the shit out of each other or whatever. It's just like, you just can tell. You can just, if you know what you're looking for, like you said yourself, you're a blue belt, right?
Yeah.
So even at blue belt, you could watch a couple of videos of me and you'd be like, yeah, like, you're a blue belt, but you'd be able to watch a video and go, yeah, that guy's legit.
Sure.
There's just certain nuances and movements that only come with mat time. And now that you've experienced it, you're like, okay, like, he moves a certain way. You only get that way with time and resistance. You know what I mean? There's certain nuances.
Absolutely. And, that brings up a valid point is, like, you've got these guys who watch MMA on TV, right? And then they say, oh, no sweat, I could do it, like, no problem. I don't think so. I mean, maybe they'll get lucky and pull off a double leg or something, right? But, like, in reality, you have to spend the time on the mat in order to really be able to understand and do this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in any type of fighting, look at what Joe Rogan says. It's basically like the audacity of people that get in street fights. Like, what are you thinking? Like, it's no wonder people get, like, wiped out, because they don't realize how hard we work, how hard it is to get good, to just even punch a target that's moving,
Yeah. The amount of time, it always baffles my mind. The amount of time that it takes to get your black belt in jiu-jitsu versus what it would take to get your black belt in most other martial arts, and I'll say cooperative martial arts, where, even let's say Krav Maga, where you're kicking the bag a whole bunch, you're doing boxing and stuff, but you may not actually be fighting much. Whereas in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it takes, average 10 years to get your black belt? Sometimes a lot longer, right?
Yeah, it took me, I do a lot of different arts. I was into a lot of different things. So when I turned pro in Muay Thai, I was still practicing jiu-jitsu, but it took my attention away during those years. And then I just picked up again. So it took me 14 years and to get my black belt. I was, I think 3 years, 2012 to 2015. So yeah, I was like a brown belt for 2-3 years, and then I got my black belt. But yeah, it took me a long time, and like, that's just the way it is. Like, you got to do the mat time.
Yeah, and for those of guys and girls out there who don't you really understand, like 14 years, it's honestly I've heard longer, man, to get your black belt. Like it's not that uncommon to wait 14 years to be handed a black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's the hardest art you could possibly do. And like yourself, I've done some Wing Chun, some Muay Thai, nothing on your level, but it's totally the way it is when you're, messing around with other martial arts. You can't give your whole time and experience to just one thing, right? So that's something I want to touch on too, is because I'm really impressed with the Muay Thai thing, man. You're a former competitive professional Muay Thai fighter.
Yep.
How long were you doing that? When did you get started in Muay Thai?
With Muay Thai, I started in 1997, actually. So there's a guy named Matek Bredzowski, and he's a master of sport from Poland. And just trying to remember, I think he married the sister of my eventual connection with Muay Thai. Okay. So he had already been incorporating Muay Thai into his Kyokushin. And I don't know if you're familiar with Kyokushin.
Not at all.
So here's me. I have a little story to lead to that, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I was working security, and I was actually working with a tactical team. They were actually legit tactical team. And they were this trained unit, and they picked me up, and I started to train with them, and they were going into problem, like any type of real estate that was a problem. Like it could be a bar, it could be a building, but like these were like AAA guys. It was pretty awesome to work with them. So anyways, these two guys were Kyokushin fighters. And remember, so this would have been 1997. So UFC was what, 3 years old? Was not UFC in 93 or something, 93,
like
94? Yeah, so I'm the only like wrestler on there. You know, I wrestle, judo, grapple, all that stuff. And so there's this big fight, big man, like big man. And at that time it was about 180 pounds. Okay. So he took a swing at me. I did a duck under, and literally like I had to jump because he's so big. I jumped on his back. I whip on the rear naked choke. I squeeze it on. He tried to slam me, like, because I'm a human backpack. He tried to slam me, but you know I was tucked in when I had it on. They had never seen anyone choked unconscious, allegedly, in case anyone's listening. So they'd never seen that before. What they'd seen was, you know, when you put it across the throat and they're just like,
yeah.
This guy legit was allegedly like sleeping. So the guy, after, they thought I killed the guy, and I said, no. And I like, you know, I shook his legs and I kick him in the heels. And then of course he woke up and he didn't want no part of that. That's the start of a relationship. So that guy was like, I want to learn that. And then I found out that he did Kyokushin, and that night too, because he kicked someone in the head. I'd never seen anyone get kicked in the head with the shin before.
Wow.
Because I use my foot. That's what I've been taught. And the guy just went, and I was like, oh my God, I need to learn that. So he started to train me. So I would drive, because I was still living in Hamilton. I would drive to Toronto, because it was the big city where we were working. And he would drive to Hamilton, and we'd go back and forth. I'd learn Kyokushin, and he'd learn grappling from me. And then he had to move his school. So that was 97. So I just informally trained. So I did that for like a couple of years, informally trained like Muay Thai not until 2006. So I've been doing kind of like security, pit fighting, like I was retarded. I can't, you know, I don't know what to tell you. I was no, who's the guy that died there? The Street Fighter is famous from the States. The big black guy. Big black guy.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. What's
like
his
he's awesome. Like
yeah. And he freaking knocked out someone's eyeball once or something.
Yeah. Like a guy like that. It'll come to us. But you know, well, I mean, I wasn't like a guy like that, but I wanted to do like this no hold barred fighting or whatever. And then I met the guy that runs House of Champions. It used to be Iron Tiger. Right. Very, very, very reputable Muay Thai team. And I joined their team. And it was Iron Tiger Muay Thai. And then so I fought for 3 years and then turned pro in boxing as well. And this guy was great. He said, like, what do you want to achieve? I said, I'm watching all these guys fighting. I can do this, man. I can do this. I can do it. So I said, I want to become a crew. Like, I want to become a teacher. I want to go to Thailand. I want to fight in Thailand. I want to be a champion. I want to fight on TV. He said, no problem.
Wow.
So I let him move his Muay Thai school to my school and didn't charge him rent, nothing. I let him, like, you know, integrate himself in my school and make money that way.
Yeah.
And I attended his classes like a student. So there's people that didn't even know I was the owner of the school.
Wow.
And that's the best way. That's how a GSP does it. When he goes trains with another professional, he's not the chief. If he goes to learn boxing, he's a boxing student. If he goes to learn wrestling, he's a wrestling student. That's the best way to learn. So if I still think I know something, I'm not going to learn the same way like a pure student will. So that's what I did. He had me training 6 days a week, and I fought after 3 months of training, and knocked out my guy in the first round in like halfway through the round, and that was the start.
Awesome.
And it was an amazing start. I fought for Canada. I won the bronze medal for Canada. I fractured my shin like after my second fight. I still fought. It was just, it was a great experience. I did the greatest martial artist world title in the States down in Florida. That was a great experience. I won. I got to fight some really good guys. What's his name? Gary Turner from England, Tofan Karate from Sweden, champions in their own right. So Sean Marchand became, he dropped weight class, but became an MMA champion. He was another guy I fought. So I got to fight some good guys to test myself and really understand what elbows, knees, shins, and clinching are all about. Like that's what I got to do for real, you know?
Muay Thai is some serious shit, man. Like when I went into it initially, I was like, okay, whatever. You know, I had 10 years of like reality-based combatives or whatever. I was like, oh, this is no thing. It's a sport. Dude, I figured out quickly, man. Like, yeah, it's a sport, but it's brutal, man. Like, what was fighting in Thailand like?
It was a big eye-opener to work ethic. I thought that when I went to Thailand that they would be doing things different. They actually are pretty traditional, so they move very slowly in changing their sport. But the work ethic is like they were doing 10 rounds of just clinching, like just it's round after round after round. They go eat like a bowl of rice, some water, like they take a nap, and then they're back to training. Like the work ethic is just insane. I did learn that I wish we would adopt more, but not to say we don't, but there is a warrior culture. So really, that's the big separator between, like, you go to Thailand and they have a Buddhist kind of background to everything. So that permeates the sport. You know, there's a lot of respect for your teacher, a lot of respect for your school, your brand, who you represent. Where sometimes that gets lost here in North America, or more Western style, because you don't have that kind of stuff. It's like, it's prize fighting, it's money, like it's a little bit different. So, but the technique actually, we have advanced Muay Thai, to tell you the truth. We just have more, and I know people would be maybe surprised at me saying that, but it's just like karate, like in judo, we have surpassed the originators at some point. Mm-hmm. You know, we've been able to improve upon. Look at what the Americans did for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. I mean, all the masters from Brazil came up to America, and America has that ability to like innovate, right? So it's the same thing with Muay Thai. We've innovated a lot of the training, right, with modern technology.
Now, when you say we've innovated a lot of the training, is that like innovations in clench work or just training methodology?
Yeah, training methodology. We categorize things and we teach by concept. So the way I would explain it is, generally speaking, if you follow someone that trains traditional Muay Thai, they give you a list of techniques, and you have to memorize techniques. So they give you the fish every day to feed you. Where we now understand learning and feedback is by teaching you a concept. So I teach you the concept of how a kick works. You start doing permutations of that kick on your own before I can even show you. So yes, I'm going to be teaching you, kick 1, kick 2, kick 3, but you yourself are already going to be figuring it out because I've taught you how to fish. I've taught you the mechanics of that kick. Where in traditional martial arts, they teach you techniques. It's just like technique after technique after technique. You get your curriculum book. In Thailand, it's kind of the same thing. Or more traditional Thai, you look at the curriculum and it's just like combination after combination after combination.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. So, you bring up a good point there about the innovation and everything. It's interesting to see the different concepts that there are in learning and teaching martial arts. I guess it's like anything else when it comes to learning, but there's a definite process and it works differently for kind of every different person. I know there's archetypes that, this person's supposed to learn this way, and then they're like, auditory learner, kinesthetic learner, something like that. How do you? Yeah. So how do you prefer to teach when you're teaching your students? Is there a specific methodology that you like to utilize?
There is. So I'm part of the National Certification Coaching Program. So in Canada, we have if you want to get to the Olympics or world in your sport, as an amateur or professional, you would follow the NCCP guidelines. So that's a regulated coaching. So it's kind of like the highest coaching you can have in Canada. And it's recognized, internationally when you're an NCCP coach. And they have a very particular way of teaching and learning. So yes, you have those 3 types of learning, where someone has to be shown it. So someone has to feel it. You have to explain it with certain words. But there's something that's even more important, which is allowing the student to learn from their own feedback. So it's called allowable range of learning. And I'm going to borrow from. I want to give props to my professor. So Robert Bernanke, who is the head instructor and creator of BJJ Concepts. He was the first one to really introduce me, and he actually literally changed my life and thinking of how to teach when he said you have to categorize concepts. You need to use science, Samir. You need to follow concepts, principles, things that are as powerful as gravity. Like when you introduce an idea, it has to be provable, evidence-based. The person has to understand it. You don't tell someone to do something because you told them to. You don't wait for them through osmosis for them to eventually figure out. You explain it and explain the concept, and you're going to see them grow. And then with the feedback is you have to give people an acceptable range. So say I want to teach you a jab. So the acceptable range of throwing the jab would be in here. So anything outside here and here, like if you threw a jab like this, that's outside the acceptable range of an okay jab. But what I've come to understand is if you're doing say not a bad jab, and you're maybe you drop it a little bit, it's not a bad jab. I don't step in and correct you. That's the biggest mistake, because you yourself are actually going to realize by looking at other people, feeling how the jab is, listening to the instructions that aren't directed at you specifically. So it's not taking away from your process. And you're going to go yourself. You're going to go, well, my shoulder didn't touch my cheek. You make that decision. So after a couple more kind of loose jabs, you go boom, and there's a learning process. And because you internalize that learning process, it comes faster. If I keep coming over and interrupting your learning process and say, tuck your thumb, turn your hand, tuck in your cheek, turn your body, even if you correct it at that time, there's so much feedback. You get into a loop. You're not going to learn as fast. So teach the concept. Figure out what's an acceptable range of how do I say that? What's acceptable? What's not going to hurt someone or hurt themselves? And if it's acceptable, leave them be. Just let them. There's guys that I watch, they're passing guard, and like it's right on the border of like, it's kind of shitty, but it's not shitty enough for me to come over and correct them and interrupt them. And then, trust me, by the end of class, they're doing the corrections that I would have given them. Like it's a pretty powerful way of learning and teaching.
You bring up that analogy with jiu-jitsu, and that's one of the things about jiu-jitsu, even Muay Thai, the combat sports, where you're also able to learn through your mistakes. In other words, when you're fighting, if you're throwing that jab and you get cracked, on the side of the face, you're going to learn quickly that, I should cover up a bit more. Yeah. What was your experience when you began to really spar and then fight? How quickly do you think that brought you to kind of a new level of understanding of all of these things?
Actually getting beat up a couple times in real life.
Okay.
So I had a couple epiphanies that were life-changing for me as it comes to training. So I was doing Wing Chun in the early 90s. And I think people thought that was a dance, like a song or so. I don't know. But I was doing Wing Chun, and you know how we chain punch and I was already like a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but I was like trying to do the Wing Chun, and I got in a fight, and I got blasted, and I was so surprised, like so stunned. Was not expecting to get blasted like that because I hadn't been blasted like that before, and I got knocked down. And, I got up and I was able to actually pull off a full chain blast across a parking lot. But I realized there were some deficiencies in, like, it wasn't real. So I had to make some big changes, but it was because I got cracked. And if I hadn't got cracked, maybe I would have just kept training the way I was training. So I stopped doing just chi sao and started to incorporate sparring early on in the early 90s. And then that's why I picked up Jeet Kune Do. I not switched. I didn't stop training Wing Chun, but I started to do Jeet Kune Do actually because some of my former students that were training in the same school with me, they quit and they went and did Jeet Kune Do. And then after I got my black sash, I was like, oh, well, I'll try that too because it looked a little bit more real, like more kickboxing and boxing aspect and fencing and all that stuff. But again, I went through a switch in 97 because 97, bringing me back to that story with the Kyokushin guy. When I went to spar them, I'd never been punched in my liver that hard before. No, you know how they punch to the body in Kyokushin? Yeah. They don't punch to the face, they punch to the body.
Okay, yeah.
In the sport. I've never been gassed like that, like dropped like a sack of shit. Like dropped, body stone. So I had to reevaluate. Like I was fighting like this, kind of like doing like a Bruce Lee vibe. And I actually went back to school and said, listen, this doesn't work under pressure testing. So we changed more to elbows covering the ribs, more like a kickboxing vibe. Hands a lot higher, like big curve this way, which was fantastic because you were able to deal with actually back then they were still smoking in the bars.
Okay.
So people would always grab the ashtrays and like smash you. It was great for covering up on bottles and stuff. You'd get cut or hit on the outside rather than the inside of your forearm. So I switched again, and then that's what made me go towards boxing and kickboxing, and then eventually Muay Thai.
So as a man who's run the gamut of these martial arts, and you bring up Wing Chun and then JKD, what did you think about, now that you look back, what do you think about arts like Wing Chun and JKD? Are they effective? If somebody doesn't know anything about martial arts, but they want to learn how to fight, should they go to Wing Chun or should they steer away from it?
This question's going to make me sweat. We're going to have a lot of haters. Are you ready for the haters?
Let's bring them on, man. The more the better.
Okay. So everything has its place and its time. And during the early 90s, and I'm sure before, like for people in the 70s and 80s, Wing Chun was working. Physically, the way it is taught, I just don't think, and this is anecdotal, this is like my personal experience. I went pretty far in Wing Chun, like I went, there's the three forms, the wooden dummy and the two weapons. Like I finished the system. I mean, you never finish a system, but
right.
I wasn't a casual Wing Chun guy. So I think I'm able to speak on those kind of terms. And people are always trying to prove that Wing Chun is effective. And my argument is, yes, it's effective conceptually. When I tell you, my friend, how many times I use the concepts of Wing Chun, close quarter, I worked in so many close quarter situations for years, right? For over 20 years, 27 years, always this close to someone, shoulder to shoulder. This is the kind of stuff that you want to do. It works. It does work. But if you do Wing Chun literally, no chance. I would bet my money. I would give you my mortgage payment, and I would take a guy that did wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, any of your combat sports. You pick them. I wouldn't say which one. You just pick them against a Wing Chun guy that trained for 3 months. And we'll see who wins. And I put my money on the combat sport that you picked.
Wow.
Because in the initial phase, if you're training traditionally, sometimes you don't even learn the first form, the entire form, because the form is their forms are broken up into 3 sections. So you would be doing this for like 3 months. You'd be doing the form, you'd be punching the air, you're doing your patty cake drills. You're gonna get blasted in the face. You're gonna get a boxer. He's gonna go double tap you, and you're done. And I know people would like to argue that, but I fought. I fought for real. I fought in close quarter situations. I am good at Wing Chun. Like I'm legit. I can chi sao with the best of them in their art. And when we spar outside of the Wing Chun parameters, it's not those guys that don't practice anything else that are winning. It's people like me that can go somewhere where they can't. They can't go. Like I can go to a deep single, double leg takedown. There's like tons of stuff I can go to. I can go to Muay Thai clinch. They can't go there, or they can't go there with any efficacy. You know what I mean? And the same with Jeet Kune Do. If you're doing original Jeet Kune Do, you're out of your mind. Like you're preserving. Well, just bring on the haters. What the hell? Like, so I come from original Jeet Kune Do. And all that means is that we try to preserve what Bruce Lee did, right? I never tell anyone that you actually can use original Jeet Kune Do techniques to actually work now, because if they did work now, somebody would be using them. What's that guy's name? Tony Ferguson, when they use him as an example that he uses his Wing Chun training. He's not the UFC fighter. He's not using his Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do training. He's using his conditioning as an athlete and his MMA skills. But when you get good, like I'm fairly good, so I'll make anything work.
Right.
So look at your favorite fighter. He probably has a move that no one else can do because he's damn good. So it's the man that makes the art. You when you get to a certain level, you can make anything work, so to speak. And we see people like that in combat sports. Jump spinning kicks, like shit that you thought would never work because they can make it work. But for the average person, if they were saying, Samir, what should I start in? Start in a resistance-based system. That's where you start. You want to learn how to fight? You need to start in a system that has resistance so that you get instant feedback. That's what's the big difference. I go train in boxing, I get instant feedback. Even if it's not like full contact, when you slowly introduce someone to boxing or kickboxing, they're not going full contact. Well, I hope they're not, or the school is shitty. But you get instant feedback. Wing Chun and Jeet Kune Do gives you fantasy. That's, I put my hand out, they find the reference, they go, pap, 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 over and over and over. And I know that just represents a reference point in the fight. It's like a piece out of the fight. But you start to think that's the fight. That's the problem.
Mm.
I remember in that fight where I literally went like this. The guy was coming towards me, and I went like this, thinking I was just going to blast him. And he just came over the top. Bop. And you'd think I would know that, but why would I know that? What, if this is how I'm training, why would I know any different? So, I was nervous. I'm glad. This is the kind of first time I come out about my feelings about it. Well, I'm still very close with my teacher. He's a master in Wing Chun. He's an amazing master of Wing Chun and Kung Fu. And we both have to have these discussions. He's always asking me, so where do you think Wing Chun is in the scheme of things? And I said, well, everything is Wing Chun. And he knows what that means. And that means, like, when you get to a certain level in your training in martial arts, what do you want to call it today? You want I'll do a kick. I kick you in the face. I'll say it's Taekwondo. Who are you to tell me it's not? I just kicked you in the face.
Right.
Do you see what I mean?
I do.
I'll make a Wing Chun kick. I'll do an oblique kick. So if it's working,
I agree full force with you. And just to get your six on that, man, I honestly, like, if you look at the movie about Wing Chun, it just came out.
Ip Man?
Right? Ip Man 2,
Yeah.
I think it was, where he fights the boxer, right? And the boxer's crushing all of the Kung Fu guys, all the Chinese guys.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience with Wing Chun, man. I love it. I think it's a great art. I studied it for about a year myself. But when you go against a boxer, they don't understand really how to move against him and how to do it. It's not the art that's at fault per se. It's more of maybe the person teaching it, or maybe just the single-mindedness that if you're doing one art, like you say, I think that everybody should be doing as many arts as they possibly can.
Well, I would be confident. So I taught Wing Chun in my curriculum until either 2012 or 2015 in my own system. But like, my Wing Chun doesn't look like the Wing Chun I did in 1992. I'll tell you that much, because my understanding of mechanics is so live. Like, I know what a round kick does, a push kick. So when I do a Wing Chun kick that's in the form, I use full mechanics, because they used to tell me in Wing Chun, I would say, like, there's no power in this kick. Give it time. They rub their beard. Give it time. Okay. So after the first 5 years, and my kick's still not getting better. Give it time, Samir. Give it time. Like, that's a stupid answer. What do you mean, give it time? Like, it's called a kinetic chain. If you don't understand the kinetic chain, how power, like how you connect things, I don't care how much time you give. Like, if your punch is like flat, it's always going to be flat.
Yeah. So
when I took the concepts of Wing Chun, longest weapon to closest target, or straight beats a circular mode, like all these different idioms that they have, or rules. The Wing Chun concepts are amazing. They are beautiful. Economy of motion, economy of energy. You just have to move with the times. Why is it, if I watch any sport, from like watch decathlon, they jump and run different? How come every 4 years the Olympics changing? Because it's always an evolution. So why is every other physical endeavor that we can name goes through this evolution, but martial arts somehow don't have to go through the evolution? That somehow they've got the secret. So you're telling me that Wing Chun, whether it's Wing Chun that was created about 600 years ago, or Jeet Kune Do that was brought about by Bruce Lee throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it doesn't need to be changed. That exactly how it works then works now, where we see with our own eyes the techniques in jiu-jitsu, judo, boxing, MMA. You can't compare the first MMA fight to what we have now.
Yeah.
But mysteriously, everyone's going to tell you that Wing Chun doesn't need to be changed. Don't reinvent the wheel. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just presenting to you science. And the science is we know now mechanics and can measure it. We know how the body moves. We know things about biology, physics that they did not know 600 years ago. So get off your lying horse. The philosophy is great. We still use philosophy from thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah.
Philosophy can come, but the techniques and the concepts have to change with the times.
You look at Jeet Kune Do for the example, and in the 70s, if you knew Jeet Kune Do, you could beat someone's ass. But like you're saying, today guys are doing jiu-jitsu, guys are doing MMA. It's not the same as it was in the 70s, let alone Wing Chun is the example from 600 freaking years ago. It does baffle me as well how they think that they can stay the same and compete on a new level.
Yeah. I think, is it called cognitive dissonance? I think dissonance.
Yeah.
Like, it hurts their brain. Like, just imagine, like, I was really fortunate. I've always been surrounded by, like, amazing, very giving instructors. So I think it's a combination that I didn't come in being like, I just wanted to learn. I was really fortunate to just have that mindset. But just imagine if I was stuck on being like, I was stuck on being a black belt already. And that was really hard for me. So I didn't wear my blue belt. I didn't wear my purple belt. And my original instructor, rest in peace. He's Pedro Viana from Chicago. He passed away. He was my first instructor. And he told me, unless you start wearing your belt, I don't want to give you your brown belt. And I like, okay, but I still was like fighting it. I wanted to wear my black belt. I was just stuck on it, right? And then he got busy. I think this was 2010. I was doing I followed his curriculum until purple belt. And then I couldn't train with him because he had passed the police academy. He'd become a cop. So I asked for permission and his blessing to train with Professor Robert Bernanke, because it's very important for some of us. Like, I'm still kind of traditional that way. I know we have to cross-train. I still want to do it the right way and ask for permission and respect. I mean, he gave me so many tools until then, right? And he gave me his full blessing, and he actually signed off for me when I got my brown belt, because you need to be a third degree to sign off if you're going the IBJJF. So like some politics in there, but he wouldn't have done that unless, I had his full blessing. I went off track. What was your original question?
We were talking about tradition, basically, versus kind of getting into the new school of things. And I think the concept where you're going with that is basically that you can have tradition. You can have these concepts. Yes, from a long time ago, but you do need to bring it into the new school.
Yeah, and that's what I did. So I made my switch into the new school of thought. I made switch from going from like a technique-based training and not a lot of rolling and resistance to like always insistence on there has to be some sort of resistance based in your training. You've got to learn the concept. You've got to be physics-based. Like, it's got to be scientific. If it's not scientific, I don't want to know about it. If it's just your opinion, like, as much as I love a person, I don't really care about your opinion unless it's based on evidence, like if science can't describe it, physics, kinesiology or kinesthetics, like, I don't care. Like, you have to be able to tell me another reason other than because you told me so.
So when we're talking about tradition and things like that, I mean, all of these things that are in the root of martial arts, respect your teacher, respect your Sifu, respect for one another, human beings, Taoism, that type of thing. How much of that do you think is lost in modern combat sports? I mean, you mentioned about the Thais being very respectful, warrior-minded.
Amazing.
I don't see a lot of that culture here in modern MMA, however.
Yeah, I think MMA, because MMA is a sport, they call it mixed martial arts. So the word martial arts is still in there. But when you have art, the word art is what softens it. You know, like it's for the beauty and the artistry and what it does for your heart and your spirit and your soul. Mixed martial arts doesn't do that. There's definitely a big difference between going to a mixed martial arts school and even just going to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school, let alone a traditional school. But mixed martial arts is one reason to go, and that's to win. You're going there for a physical endeavor, and how do they say? What's that saying? It rolls from the top. Right. Everything always rolls from the top. So, I'm sure there are some schools that have a little bit more respect-based and maybe some tradition in there, depending on the instructor's background. Mm-hmm. And, it rolls from the top. So if he's a respectful guy, if he's chill, and he doesn't stand for, the worst shit that happens, then you got a better school. But I've yet to see too many schools like that. It's pretty rough when it's pure sport-based combatives. You pay your dues, and that guy has to teach you. And that's it. And yes, you might make some personal bonds with people, but there's no structure in place that forces you to be respectful, know.
I think noticed that with these MMA schools is as long as you're paying them, that's really all they ask. You can, even kind of be a dick and like hurt somebody, and it's like unless you really are a dick, keep coming back,
Yeah, I moved. I don't really deal with that crowd. I've gone back to just concentrating on like pure sports, like pure sport of jiu-jitsu, pure sport of no-gi, pure sport of boxing, pure sport of Muay Thai. I find the purity, there's one goal, and that's to make that sport come together for everyone. Like in mixed martial arts, you don't have an allegiance to the art of, like, you can go to a boxing gym, and if it's a really well-connected boxing gym with the amateur side to it, developing youth, developing people. So you've got that side. And then you've got, people that just come in a box, you get a good workout. And then you got some pros in there. Yeah. But the whole atmosphere is built on building up our youth, building up the next generation. Yeah. Everyone wants to help. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone has the same goal. Like it's the same regionals that everyone fights in. And then the next one is like your provincials or your nationals, and then your internationals, then your world. Like everyone is on the same journey. They just get there different. When you start getting to mixed martial arts schools, they don't have that kind of allegiance to the sport because it's a whole bunch of sports. So when I go to a mixed martial arts school, my one instructor is Muay Thai, and he's going to tell me that Muay Thai is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And then my other coach is the boxing coach, and he's going to tell me that boxing is the best and I don't need anything else. And then I go to the jiu-jitsu guy, and the jiu-jitsu guy says, fuck all of them. I'm going to take them to the ground and choke them out. So you should listen to me. You get what I'm saying? So you get there's no allegiance because there's so many cooks in the kitchen. How can I be on a path of peace and love and making the sport better when I got 5 egos to contend with, and they're all telling me how it should go, So unless you have a school where there's one guy that can really gel everyone, you're going to get your average Joe that's just there to beat the shit out of people and see how long you can get away with it.
You bring up ego, and I really think that that's what it's about in the MMA schools. There's so much test going around. There's so much ego. That's just what it is. But when we look at pure water Japanese jiu-jitsu or something like that, like more Shintoism, Taoism, and I think the Buddhists would say, and I'm not an expert, I think they would say something like, to strip your ego away would be the path to more enlightenment type of thing. How much do you think that ego actually helps you being a fighter? Being someone capable of actually overcoming a violent altercation versus more of that kind of, what's his name? Bruce Lee type, who had a big ego, but you know what I'm saying? Someone who's a little more zen than somebody who's like a cage fighter with a big ego. Is there a balance that we have to find, or is having a big ego like actually helpful?
I think it's not that I think there's a difference between having a big ego and being self-confident.
Okay.
A big ego is based on your reality, right? So if I could have a big ego, but I could be pretty unrealistic about where I am in the hierarchy of things, right? And I just got into a heated discussion. So this is great that you bring this up. I got into a heated discussion last year, and it was with the blue belts. So I was online and I wrote this thing about ego. And I said, the stupidest thing that I've ever seen is this plaque that martial arts people put on because they want to sound all zen and wise. And it says, leave your ego at the door. Mm. And I said, well, that's stupid because ego is a part of you. And I'm going to be using the Freudian term. Okay. So not like ego as in like your arrogance, like your actual ego. Yeah. That is your self-image of who you are, right? You have to bring it with you. When I tell you leave your ego at the door, I'm going to get a zombie. I want you to bring your ego. I want to know you. I want to know your experiences. I want to know where you think you fit in the hierarchy. And instead of saying leave your ego at the door, you say bring your ego and prepare it. Prepare it for the beating of its life, right?
Yeah.
Please bring your ego, because when you falsely say, I'm not bringing my ego, silently, that freaking thing is with you. Mm. And you are, silently measuring yourself against this guy, and how come he got a stripe and I didn't get a stripe, and I could do that, and I didn't get him to tap because, I ate too much before I came to class. Like whatever. Please bring your ego. Just know you need to put some reins on it, because if you don't, most of the time, someone else is going to give your ego some training, right? But bring your ego, bring it and train it. That's, I think, in MMA, everyone has the false thing of, they say, don't bring your ego. So no one actually brings their authentic self. Huh. Bring your authentic self. Let's see who you think you are, and let's make sure you understand, if you come to hurt anyone, if that's the type of person you are, that's beyond your ego. That's like there's something wrong with you. Yeah. If you just want to come in, and that's just weird. I think that's weird that you want to come in and beat on helpless people. Like, you understand what I mean? I do. Yeah, like I run into, actually at our schools, I'm really proud of that. I never tell someone don't bring your ego. I don't have those kind of conversations. I just say, when you come, everyone learns. And if you've come to hurt someone here, you will get hurt. And in the old days, I would have just kicked the shit out of you. But I'll get charged and go to jail now. So I'm not going to kick the shit out of you. I'm just going to kick you out. Okay. But know that I really want to kick the shit out of you. And then it just sets the bar right away. It just sets the bar. That's how you
deal with people when it comes to, because every school's got them, and I alluded to that, is the real psychopaths who enjoy hurting people. And some schools keep them in, and some schools kick them out. So you guys would more be the type of school that says, not in our dojo, buddy.
Yeah, we're it's probably one of the things that we're known for here in the city is people mistake, because we're that way, that we're not competitors. Yeah. But we have a full comp team. They just they clean up. They get their golds and silvers, like they're on the what do you call that, the podium, like anyone else. We just know that having an ego and being confident are two different things. Like I said, we don't need to have a big ego to find success in training. That's not what you need to become a champion. You need to actually know where you are in the hierarchy and what you need to work on. That's, if you have anyone that's reached the goal, they weren't delusional. They might have thought, maybe everyone around them thought they were delusional, but they knew what they wanted and they knew what they had to do to get it. And it's that straight and narrow path where most people can't do that. They mistake that for, ego, because the guy doesn't care about anything else or anyone else. No, he's just like very focused. And some people walk on the backs of others to get there. And that's where their ego comes in a little bit. And that comes back to haunt them. But I think a lot of champions know better. They know it takes a team. They know it takes people. I know I didn't get to the championship because of me. I got to the championship because I had 5 other guys helping me, prepare me. Anytime I won because I had other people. So you're damn right I swallow any ego that I have. I keep it on the chill, and I take in information, and if someone's like rubbing me the wrong way, as long as they're not trying to hurt me, I just, I don't let my ego dictate, that relationship.
So you mentioned about kind of what it takes to become a champion, and this is something that's fascinating to me. Now, if somebody who's watching this right now, maybe they're a jiu-jitsu guy, maybe they're a Muay Thai guy, maybe they're both kind of a mixed martial artist, what advice would you give someone who's never even been in a fight before? Like I'm saying, like a sanctioned fight. Yeah. And how do they get from that point to going into a fight to winning it and then successively winning more fights? What does it take exactly?
It takes specificity, very, very specific approach. You can't be random. You have to, when there's something in front of you, like a competition that you want to get to, or like there's going to be a path to become a champion. So first you have to figure out what the path is. You have to figure out what you're going to need to reach that. Figure out if you have it, and if you don't have it, how you're going to get it. So there's all this pre-planning where people are just like, I want to be the champ. Okay, good luck, right? So I did a program. I did a program for my team, and I actually did a program for this. Oh, this is cool. So I did this talk, and one of my students is the associate professor at the university here in Hamilton. She's a psychiatrist. She's an associate professor. She's pretty up there, and she was just fascinated by this course I had given about what it takes to become a champion, and how do you get over your pre-fight anxiety and stressors, and as you're getting closer to the fight and all that. So I had broken it down to attention to process, not outcome, and to qualify and quantify the process that's going to make you the champion. So I did a set of videos for her class that was preparing for the final psychiatric exam to become an actual psychiatrist. And they asked the same question. And it was, everyone is always concerned about the outcome, where the only thing that determines the outcome is the process, is the steps that you take. So great that you want to be Muay Thai champion. Great. What is the process to get there? And that should be your absolute concentration, nothing else. So first qualify your process. And all that means is when you're trying to become a champion, or you're just trying to get over, accomplish your first fight, you have to qualify. Is my training good? Is my teacher good? Is the material I'm studying good? Is the equipment the right equipment? Because you don't know on a subconscious level that that's giving you pause and hesitation. So you build up you qualify everything that you're doing, the tools that you're going to use, and where you're getting the information. So say my guy's getting ready. He's going to be like, well, who's this guy teaching me? Oh, he used to be Muay Thai champion. He was a good Muay Thai fighter. Oh, and he's produced a couple of Muay Thai champions. Okay, I've qualified who's going to be giving me this information. Let's look at the equipment and the facility. Equipment is, it's modern. Facility is up to date. They're using the latest equipment to create the strongest fighters. Good. So I've qualified where I'm going to get the information. I've qualified the equipment I'm going to use, the information. Good. Now let's quantify. So there's so many unknowns and so many fighters and people getting ready for something. They don't have the comps. They always think they're going to gas out, right? Am I even going to make it past the first round? Well, you can't be going into a fight not knowing that. So you got to qualify your training. So if I know that eventually when I become a champion, I'm going to have to fight 5 rounds, I better have 7 to 10 rounds in the gas tank, right? Can I take a punch? I don't know. Have you ever been punched hard? You know, we can't go around getting knocked out, but you got to have some sort of training that's going to simulate getting punched hard. And there are ways to do it. So you quantify the rounds that you need. You quantify the heart rate that you will need. You quantify your cardio, the minutes that you can last. By the time, so this is the process that's ongoing. By the time you get to where you're getting, all answers, you have all the answers. There should be no hesitation or pause. Do you know how many people go into competition without having any of those answers? And they meander for years and then finally hit a good process and go. And you'll see some people are like that. They're like here, and then out of the blue, like they go boom, because they finally realize there's a process, where others accomplish the same thing in half the time, because they know where they know what they need to know. They trust the source of training, which is huge. That goes into combatives and why some combatives don't work, because they don't trust the source. They trust the training. They see that the training is effective. They see the results of that training. They quantify physically what they're going to need to achieve it, and then they believe it because they put their lungs, their heart rate, their cardio under that pressure. They actually can measure mathematically, yes, I can last this long with this kind of pressure and this kind of volume. Very, very specific training. And then finally, visualization. And for my fight against Gary Turner and Tofan Pirani, I visualized that fight like 300-400 times before I even went there. So that's the final part. Is I did all the process. The process is quantifying and qualifying, and then the visualization. So I visualized myself, the clothes I was going to wear, the car I was going to drive in, who the people were with me. I visualized getting to the airport, waiting, looking at my phone. I imagined everything over and over. Getting to the locker room, meeting the people, being at the weigh-ins. I'd met Gary 300 times before I even met him. I was so chill and relaxed that Florida State rules, the commission, you can't leave the locker room once you're admitted, right? So you have to stay in the locker room just so you don't go outside and take like additives or answers. I fell asleep under the table, you know, where they have like the drape over the table.
Yeah.
And thank God someone saw me go under the table. I just wanted to like lay down because the commissioner thought I had left the room. And they're like, no, just give me a second. They lifted the drape and I was there sleeping.
Wow.
What was there to have anxiety about? I fought the guy 300 times in my head already. And I didn't win. I lost by decision that fight. Increased the process efficiency better, and actually visualized the texture and the movement of the knockout. I saw it over and over in my head. Like I felt it. I felt the feeling. Like I can feel it right now as I'm talking about it. And that's how it came out. It was surreal. Wow. It was so surreal. I knocked him out exactly the way I visualized it. And my coach had kept telling me, you know, that's what you're going to knock him out with. You're going to knock him out with your left. And I did. And never thinking about the outcome. The outcome is inevitable if you have done the process. If you look at any champion, they don't question that they're going to win. They don't question that. They're not worried about the night of the fight. They don't concern themselves with winning. In their mind, they've won hundreds of times already. Of course they would win with the process. They know the source of their training, and they know the quality of it. They're so confident in it. They know it works. They've seen it work week after week after week. They've processed proper opponents that simulate the opponent they're going to fight. They know down to the minute how long they can last, so they've made sure to put enough in the gas tank, so there's no hesitation. No matter how hard they fight, they know they got 3 or 4 rounds. Imagine how empowered I was knowing that I could be in a war, wouldn't matter, because I'd simulated being in a war for 3 or 4 rounds beyond the rounds that I would need to fight. I took my jiu-jitsu team. I beat on them that process, and every man made it to the podium. And the one guy won his 6 matches with the same move, and fought one guy twice and got him with the same move. He guillotined 6 men for the gold because all he concentrated on was the process. He did not give a shit how many guys he had to fight. He did not give a shit what time it was. He did not care if he won a medal or not. All he cared about was that he would go through this process that we had been training on, to A, to B, to C, to get the guillotine. And if it didn't work, to tactically reposition himself, reset, and go again. Go forwards, backwards, standing on the ground. Six goals, man, like 6 wins. What more do you want?
Damn, dude.
So that'd be my advice.
That's incredibly solid advice, man. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I was having flashbacks of my own when you were saying that, and it just makes complete sense. Complete sense. Spoken from
like when you fought?
I've only done some Nagas, so. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when I did my last Naga, I followed that kind of same process unknowingly, but I really just cared about the training process. I put my all into it for 2-3 months beforehand. Didn't give a fuck about the outcome. Like, I just went in there to go see what happens, and boom, ended up getting gold. So it was really, it proves to me, like what you're saying, like 100% correct about trust the process, train as hard as you can, focus on your training, and then it'll happen.
Yeah, that, like how could you possibly question that you weren't going to win gold if you had gone through the process and done all those things you said instinctually? You get there, you don't even check the board. You don't even check who's in your bracket. Who cares? If who's in the bracket determines whether you're going to win gold, you shouldn't be fighting.
Yeah. It
doesn't matter. What matters is that you trained properly, and you know you trained properly because of the way you're measuring tools. Go fight now. That's it.
You mentioned about combatives, and this is something I definitely want to get into with you. And don't worry about treading on any toes here, because I tend to be very vocal about my opinions as well. So when it comes to
you're just trying to get me in hot water, aren't you?
You got me there. No, so seriously though, I think for 10 years I did Krav Maga, other various, like, I guess you could say non-resistance based martial arts that were, you know, all about combatives. And in the end, I won't say they let me down because they gave me a very solid foundation, but they can't stack up against a wrestler who did, you know, 4 years in high school and then college, or even just 4 years in high school. They can't stack up against a BJJ guy. What is it about these combatives, reality-based combatives, that makes them so ineffective? Is it simply the lack of fighting?
Yeah, they're not. They've convinced themselves that anything to do with sport takes away from the reality of what they're doing. And so they don't pursue resistance the same way. But they forget something. In all combat sports, what do we have? Say you have 2 people fighting. Who's the third person? The referee.
Oh, okay.
There's always a third person. Do you know why there's a third person in combat sports? Because combat sports is so dangerous, so deadly, that if you didn't have a third party in there, someone would seriously get hurt or killed.
Yeah.
So they don't get that. They've convinced themselves that's not true. Let's take boxing. Got 2 boxers, rules, they're inside a ring, they're not in the middle of an alley with their hoodies on, you know, and their knives. They've got big fat gloves on. They are trying, with the amazing training that boxing has for punching, trying to knock another human being out. That's all they work on. Like, that's all they work on. Single-mindedly, they try to knock you out by hitting you to your liver or spleen, or getting a little, you know, shot to the kidney, or knock you in the head. That's their sole purpose in life. That's all they train over and over and over, right? And then they have a referee, because the referee knows when they clinch up, if he doesn't get in there, it's going to get ugly. And now, they'll bite someone's ear. They'll headbutt each other. Maybe a forearm elbow will come. They'll trip. They'll push them through the ropes. It escalates very quickly. But we never see the escalation. And when we do, what happens? All the people come out from the crowd. They start jumping in the ring. All the trainers and the coaches, because that's how dangerous and ugly it's going to get. People got to get in there between those two boxers. That's how bad it is. You don't get a reaction like that if you think that it's not dangerous. Shit's going down. And they've got their gloves on still. So all this reality-based fighting, they don't have this intense, focused training, this singular mindset. Wrestling, they work on the takedown. They work on the pin. That's it. They want to take you down, and that's what they live for. Their life is wrapped around taking you down and pinning you. So, and I don't know if you've ever seen when wrestlers like hit each other and shit gets ugly. It gets ugly.
Okay.
Right? If it wasn't for the refs and the rules, wrestlers would be throwing each other on their heads, on their spine. Like, it's illegal. You can't pile drive people in their head. Do you know why? Because they'll die.
Yeah.
They'll get paralyzed.
Yeah.
You give me the sport, and I'll show you how many rules are involved to keep it civilized, and that you always need corner people, referees, commissioners, because if you didn't have those people, someone would seriously get hurt. So how do you think reality-based training can trump that kind of intensity?
Yeah.
Like simulating with the body armor. I've done all that shit. It's still not the same as being in the ring, boxing someone, doing Muay Thai, going to Naga. Some guy's trying to rip your ankle off, man.
Yeah.
He's trying to choke you unconscious. He's trying to break your arm. And the only reason it doesn't happen, or the only reason you didn't do it to someone when you won your goal, is because there was rules.
Yeah.
And someone had the civility to tap. So how can you not recognize that all of these systems, how dangerous and effective they are? They've
got the double eye gouge, so they're ahead of the game, right?
Yeah. I watch fights on YouTube. These aren't the winning techniques. The biting, the eye gouging, even the groin. You think I haven't been kicked in the groin? I've been kicked in the groin so hard that my testicles went up in that cavity, and it took me a day to get them down. I get worked up because there's a lot of big names out there making a lot of money, I think. Or maybe it's smoke and mirrors, I don't know. They look like they're making money, selling their books and their DVDs and their and their quick fixes. Bro, man, there is no quick fix. There's no quick fix. If you don't train enough, it doesn't work. Now, yes, you can do some workshops where I can show you that elbowing someone in the face is way better than punching them in the face. It's safer. You don't break your hands. A woman can do it even with if she's small. This is way better than trying to teach a woman to punch someone in the face. Kneeing someone. These are simple things that we can teach people over a short amount of time. Don't need a whole bunch of training. But when I watch these reality-based systems and the great lengths that they go to create a system and show the efficacy of the system and the testimonials, it's horseshit.
Yeah.
It's horseshit, because I had 3 Krav Maga guys come just after UFC, and they were shit-talking sports. They came from a Krav Maga school. They had belts, though. I don't know what belts they were, but they were pretty sassy. They actually all turned out to be good guys. They came to work for me for security after, but they came to challenge me. So they came to challenge me, and I said, well, this is like that Bruce Lee movie, The Pagoda.
Yeah.
I said, just go spar with my students here. They're like, well, are you sure? Because, it's really dangerous what we do. It's all elbows and knees. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And the one guy was a big dude. And so I said, there was 3 guys, and I sent my 3 yellow belts,
Oh.
like just like beginners, yellow belt. Like they've been training. The one guy been training 3 years, a year and a half, 2 years somewhere, and my guy's training like 4 to 6 months or something. Yeah. Oh my God, it was hilarious. They were like went to grab them, right?
Yeah.
And all the guys, they punch. They go pop pop. They level change, double leg, boom, get on top, pound, and then I'm like, okay, it's good, let him up. And like 5 or 6 times, my guys just beat the shit out of them.
Wow.
And the one guy was really upset, not upset with us. He's upset with his training. He's like, I've been training like near 3 years. How is this possible? He said, like, you got to see us. We work on the red man suit. We like do a lot of cardio. He showed me how he did the knees and how they just like, oh, shit. It's all horse shit, man.
It is.
You want to hit pads all day, but you got to get resistance training, and you can't learn Muay Thai techniques from a Krav Maga guy.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these going back to reality-based systems, is they think that they are the reality-based mixed martial arts guys, or they like that they can borrow some effective tools. But the problem with that is that you need to have a system. A system gives you cohesion. So you have to have the same concepts running through your system. And sometimes when you pull from so many different arts and you haven't actually done the entire art, you can't appreciate the nuance of the concepts that drive that system. Sometimes the system is driven culturally. People don't even consider that. But sometimes you're doing like, you'll borrow from self-defense, say Filipino martial arts, right? So you borrow from certain geographical areas, and you'll see that it's lots of slashing, right? So you incorporate that in your self-defense, reality-based. But we're in North America, and say you're in the northern part where it's all cold, people wear heavier clothing, modern police forces wear armor. How's that going to work for you? The system of slashing. Where you go to Japanese, different culture, different people. Guess what techniques they have? Thrusting. People make fun of thrusting. They don't have this kind of motion. They have big motions because their culture, those movements were based for armor.
Right.
Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like if you come from Japanese culture, samurai stories and all that, you can see they wore armor, heavy armor. Where when you go to Malaysia or Indonesia, they didn't wear heavy plate armor. So you can't just indiscriminately borrow and say this is effective, this is effective. It's not, because you don't understand the history and the nuance of where it's coming from. So culture will impact your technique. Climate will impact your technique.
Yeah.
Right? If all your movements are based on me wearing heavy clothing, and 9 months out of the year I wear no shirt or a t-shirt and shorts, how's that working for you?
So that's like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu almost. Like guys spend all their time training in the gi, and then they're on the beach and they get in a fight. What happens? They get maybe their ass whooped or something, and they've never done some no-gi, right?
It's happened. And it happened initially when BJJ was making its transition into no-holds-barred fights, and MMA was starting to form. The huge gap in jiu-jitsu training, and that's why they had to start to incorporate more like Vale Tudo, no rules, is without the gi, so that they would get the nuance of what's needed when you don't have like heavy grips. And then no gi became very big. So again, evolution. No one fights the same way. Like even with purists, they're going to have a no gi day.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to any gi school, they have like no gi day. It's like a special day, right? We don't wear the gi. So that duality-based market, like it just, I have these discussions and it drives me crazy. Like, why would you go to a reality-based instructor that's giving you his take on kicks and punches and elbows, and like, why wouldn't you go to the source? Like, if I want to learn how to punch, I'm going to take my cues from a boxer.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that weird? That I want to take my cues, right? I want to learn about elbows and knees. I take my cues from a Muay Thai guy.
Yeah.
If I want to know about headbutts, I'm watching Lethway. I'm watching Lethway fighters that incorporate headbutts, and I study them. I don't study some reality-based instructor who's teaching me, the Scottish Highland kiss or whatever, or he studied like 100 penitentiary, like I study the guys that I can see have done it. I take my cues from those, going back, qualifying. And when you go to most of these reality-based guys, they don't have they didn't even attempt. I mean, at least get your blue belt. Like, at least get your blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so you have a good perspective, right? I think being a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and teaching self-defense is totally legit. Because depending on what school and curriculum, but I would say safely that by the time you get to a blue belt, and you're a blue belt, right? Yeah. By the time you get to a blue belt, you know how to fall properly without destroying your body. You know how to, kind of twist up your body. You know how to defend from the mount. You know how to defend from all kind of pins. Yeah. You don't panic anymore. You're not vomiting. You're not scared. You could probably at that time incorporate some punches and some MMA style drilling, and your technique's still solid. So you would be a legit source, say if you're teaching other self-defense, and you have like a take on how to defend the mount. I'd be like, well, what's your background? You're like, I have my blue belt. Okay. You don't have to be a black belt to teach somebody how to escape the mount.
True.
But if you tell me that you have 3 months of training or you did your free trial 2 weeks and that is your background, I don't want to hear it from you.
Yeah.
But I know if you're a blue belt, you would have had to have enough resistance training and mat training. And if someone outside doesn't recognize that and thinks you have to be a black belt, they don't know jiu-jitsu. Yeah. You know what you know as a blue belt. Yeah. You know what you had to go through to just get a blue belt. Right?
It's incredible what you have to go through just to get a gosh damn blue belt, the first belt in the system, man. Crazy.
That's enough for self-defense. Yeah. If you wanted to stay at blue belt and just refine what you knew at blue belt, you'd be fine. It's great. But now you have a pedestal from which you can speak from. Reality-based guys, when I ask, well, what's your experience? They don't have that answer.
Well, we don't go to the ground because what if he has a buddy behind him?
Those are dumb answers. Yeah. And I don't know why we can't just say that. Like, why can't I not just be on a podcast with like 2 or 3 of these, like, big names?
Oh, man, I'd love to see that.
And say, like, you're full of shit. Yeah. Because I will say, okay, let's do self-defense and you can kill me. What better challenge, right? I won't, but I'll say, I guarantee you, I'll sign a contract. I will not kill you. I will sign the contract and say, I will not try to kill you, but you can kill me. You reality-based guy, you can kill me. And we're going to sign a contract, and we're going to go to an island that allows us to do it. And they don't have any resistance training. Like, they didn't fight. They don't grapple. They don't wrestle. They don't kickbox. No Muay Thai. No wrestling. No judo. No blue belt. Nothing. Who you gonna put your money on?
Yeah, no, 100%. I would definitely always put my money on somebody who's been there and done it. Like you're saying, you have to vet the source. You have to know what they're talking about. I can't tell you how many systems I've walked into their school, start questioning them a little bit, see, hey, like, what ground techniques do you have, this and that. I kind of know a little bit about what to ask these guys. And most of them, we don't go to the ground, if he pulls out a knife, blah, blah, blah. All you got to do is bite the guy in the throat this way and fight's over. You can tell those guys never fought. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, what's this with the knife? Here's another thing with reality-based. Do you know how many of those guys don't do knife? And so I'll play both sides of this. It takes a lot of knife training to be good at knife training. Yeah. It takes a lot of training, right? And even as a knife guy, I train combat arnis and modular blade concepts and martial blade craft. We do amazing knife work, right? But saying that, I would avoid fighting someone with an edged weapon. Why wouldn't I? Like, that's just the intelligent thing. I train those things because this is my job. It is my job. And when I teach knife defense or knife attack, it would be for the arena that we are in. I really think that civil training, like for civilians, it's not like super practical.
Yeah.
Like, you want to teach someone to be offensive with the blade and to be in the arena of war, like, that's specific to your ability to just use a knife. And like, if you're fighting like a knife guy, like, good luck trying to disarm him. Like, if you have like a legit knife guy, like I do the drills where we're grappling, and I'm not grappling with bums. Like, I'm grappling like brown belts and purple belts, and like, not bums. And I'll be like, okay, I won't even try and stab you. I just want you to take the knife away from me. They can't take the knife away from me.
Yeah.
Just as much as they can't fucking armbar me. like right? And I fought bigger guys and better guys. Like, you know, they're like black belt. All that happens is that, like, they're able to kind of trap me, but they certainly can't get the knife from me. And if they go offensive, I cut them. If they start to open up their game, I'll cut them.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of fighting a knife guy. The other thing is, I did a study. I looked at I got really pissed off. I just watched some guy from England. I don't know his name. Big, stocky guy, bald, teaches the futility of knife defense. And he was like shit-talking every other reality-based instructor about, like, you shouldn't be teaching people to disarm and whatever. And I was just like the people say, you know, well, we won't go to the ground. But what if you do?
Right.
So I would say to you, I can't go anywhere. I'm surprised. I'm already stabbed, because usually, you know, when you're fighting someone who's serious, you feel the blade. You don't see it, right? So I'm already stabbed. Maybe I do realize I'm stabbed. What do? I listen to the guy and say it's futile to defend yourself. So that's what but it just burns me, right? And so he was showing, what do they call this? A needle technique? The
threaded needle or something like that?
Yeah, like so I watched 150 closed circuit reviews of fights with knives. 150 videos. Of the 150 videos, 3 of them, in 3 videos, they were left-handed. That's it. 150, 3 people were left-handed. Everyone else was right-handed. The 2 major strikes was ice, like a psycho ice pick type, and this way. Okay, there wasn't no motions like Filipino. No one was trained. There was one video where the guy, you know, was poking him, but he was actually like poke and then like poke. None of this like how they do in jail, because they're under time constriction before the boss man comes out and like shoots them with pellets, or I don't know what happens, right? Yeah, I watch movies. That's what I see. So I watch 150 movies. You got to do it. You got to try. You got to go on YouTube and watch videos. Just like punch in like knife attacks. I'm not talking jail, so just skip penitentiary. We're talking about these reality-based guys that are teaching you what you should be doing with a knife and how the attacks are going to be, and you're going to see that they're not like this. All of them I saw were emotional-based, right? And they were committed. Like, they were absolutely committed. And they were big fall-through. Like, the one guy, I think maybe you saw this video where it's in China. Guy comes in the office, stabs him, and then hooks it into his collarbone, goes like this and drags him.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Have you seen that video?
No.
Okay. So he stabs him like 3 times. Super slow. Like, not like he wasn't like no ninja. He just walked in, went, boom, punched him, I think, in the chest. Guy falls, starts bleeding. Stabs him again, and then sticks the knife here and literally drags him over. And then stabs him one more time and leaves the office type thing.
Damn.
None of the scenarios are like where the guys are fast. the guy displays his blade, even shows him, and then the other guy's like standing there or still trying to fight him. Now this would be the time where you would listen to that instructor and run like there's fire on your ass. Nobody runs.
Huh.
No one puts a barrier in between them. Like the second you have a knife, I put a barrier between us. Yeah. Why wouldn't I? I get another tool. You want to fight a tool with a tool. You want to fight a weapon with a weapon. You can't believe those kung fu movies. I don't even believe myself.
Yeah.
Right? It's not my go-to to be like zapping people. my go-to is like, let me see if I can smash you with this book, or is this metal hard enough? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's the first thing I do is I grab shit. I start hitting you with it as I'm trying to run away. But none of the videos show what they're teaching. And I think it's a lack of their knowledge too, because ask them, how much knife training have they done? You know, your one weekend seminar doesn't count, man. Right?
You guys aren't going out and training Arnis or Kali or whatever the hell. They're just kind of going to seminars, I think. Like you said, seminars, YouTube, things like that. And then they're the expert.
Well, they're quoting statistics. They're quoting FBI statistics.
Right.
They're always quoting, you know, right-handed attack or this angle or this type. But that's on paper, right? Yeah. And they draw the information and create their programs, and then they can support their programs as evidence-based because they're like, listen, man, statistically speaking, what is it, the justice, what do you have in the States there?
DOJ, Department of Justice, or?
Yeah, they put out something too once a year. So, like, United States is amazing for statistical information, like on attacks, the type of gender, the race, like you can get all kind of information if you know the sources to get. But it's on paper. It doesn't give you the full story. But it takes you 10 minutes to go on YouTube and realize that, you know what, you do have a fighting chance. There are people that do grab the weapon. They grab the arm, right? Like a 2-on-1, I would say it's pretty reliable. Like if you can get a 2-on-1, like they're, you know, I've seen them, like the trainers, they're like, well, that won't work because I'll just switch my hands. Well, you've obviously never been in a fucking weapon fight, because if you know anything about your weapon, that guy doesn't let go of his weapon. There's a term of, what is that term? Like it's like your weapon focus, but there's a term.
Oh, like if you it or something.
Yeah, like if you have a gun,
right?
You're not going to relinquish your gun,
right?
You're going to hold on to your gun, but it's that fixation that you have the weapon. But that's a good thing. It's a good thing because then I can do simple moves that can work. And no, I can't guarantee that you can survive. No one can. But we can try to up it, right? But you have to train it. You can't be saying, like, whatever it is they say. I just tune them out. As soon as I find out that they've got like some pretty simple approaches, you know, and they say run away. That's, you know, if you hear run away or we don't go to the ground, you just need to turn around and go back out the door. Yeah,
run away from them, man.
Yeah, you just need to turn around right away. Be like, do you guys do anything for ground defense? No? How about weapon defense? No? Okay, see ya. And gone.
This is one of my big beefs with Krav too, and I've had guys disagree and agree with me here, but in my opinion, when you see them and they do like a blitz to the face and a knee, right, and then they turn around and run away, I think that's ridiculous. Why not just finish the fight, you know? What's your opinion on that?
I always say, what makes you think you can outrun your attacker? And who's convinced you that one hit is going to shut down that person?
Right.
I mean, I've hit people that it's supposed to be like the ninja move. Like, you know how hard I've hit people? And they're looking at me like I'm looking at you. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I guess I'm in a fight. You know, like I've been blasted to the groin. I told you, I just got mad. I just got mad, and I was hurt. But I was hurt the next day. That later in the night, you know, adrenaline is an amazing drug. Adrenaline, and what's the other one? Norepinephrine, and
right.
You know, this chemical cocktail that we release makes us superhuman.
Yeah.
And when I see the Krav Maga guys, when they disengage like that, they are trying to fit their system that's supposed to have originated from Israel, from military, where you're not running away. You understand that, right? When you engage, it's with what's the word? It's a final engagement.
Yeah.
You're not running away. That's not happening. So they've tried to take a military system or a military mindset and make it in the civilian market. And there's so many state laws, so many provincial laws. You can't tell someone to finish someone off.
Right.
You'll be held liable. I know that in Canada, I cannot be telling people to kill people. So even when I work with knife, it's always, I'm very careful with the disclaimer. This is entertainment purposes only, or this is for demonstration purposes only. Check with your local state laws, provincial laws. I cover my shit. But I think it's very unrealistic. I've been around tons of fights my whole life, and I have been blown away at the two sides of the coin, which is the human body is frail, but it's resilient.
Yeah.
I've tapped people, literally tapped them with a slap. I like to slap them in the side of the neck.
Okay.
Yeah, I cup it and I just go and they just fall.
Wow.
Other times, I've done boom, and they don't even pause. I've kneed them 4 or 5 times, championship knees. They don't care. So what is it? Where's the disengaging part? If that's your go-to, you're going to get a wicked surprise. And how come the instructor then doesn't include 100-meter training?
Right. Yeah.
You got to be able to run, bro. You got to be able to run. You want to disengage? You got to be able to run. You don't think I'm going to be running after you?
I was going through this Krav instructor's course, and I remember I was so disappointed with it, man, because I would do the techniques that they were having us do, and I would try to finish it off. I would, mock it, hit them while they were down or kick them in the head or whatever. And guys would be coming up to me, "You can't do that. You can't do that. You can't finish anybody." And I'm thinking, dude, this is supposed to be from the Israeli commandos or whatever. Isn't this what you would do? Well, this is for civilian use. You have to run away. And I'm sitting there dude, this is ridiculous, number one. And then I'm thinking, if this is a chick, right? You're saying this is for women's self-defense, which basically Krav Maga in the States is. And she's got a pair of heels on. She's going to freaking run away from a prison thug who's intent on getting her. Absurd, man. To your point, absurd.
Well, then the next question is, how come people are blind to this? This is what always gets me, is they're blind to it because they have a guy at the front of the class who says he's, Israeli commando. But what they don't know is that's just marketing. He's not an Israeli commando.
Yeah.
And even the Israeli commandos, I know some legit Israeli guys, legit. They've been there, they've done it.
Yeah.
And they say a lot of these guys, and they gave me those some names. They're they just did their draft. In Israel they have to do it, right?
Yeah.
So you get some stripes. Some of them are in the reserve. That's their ranks are from the reserves. So you don't know who's legit and who's not legit. So just because you were an Israeli soldier does not necessarily mean you're the god of Krav Maga, because everyone does Krav Maga. Krav Maga is a general word in Hebrew for full contact. When they tried to trademark it, I forget the guy in the States, Levine. He was the first guy that tried to. He got in a big court case to trademark it, and he could not. He did not win because they said Krav Maga is a general term. It's just Hebrew words. It's not a system.
Right.
It's full contact, right? A form of. You can translate a couple different ways, but that's kind of what it means, right? So.
Yeah, it's ridiculous what they've done to it, man. I remember.
Pretty watered down.
What's that?
It's pretty watered down.
It's watered down here, man. I remember I trained in Israel with the IDF. I did a bodyguard course out there, and I watched them do these soldiers. They were training their Krav Maga with each other. They're beating the shit out of each other, man. Then you come over here and you're looking at it and it's like, no, that's not real Krav Maga. That's some BS like marketing, like you said, marketing. Yeah.
Two different things going on there. Two different things. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to learn how to fight, to kind of round things out here, what would your advice be to a guy who's saying, I've got maybe a little bit of this reality-based stuff or even nothing, and I want to learn how to actually hold my own. Lord forbid, society crumbles and we got zombies invading us. We need to kill them all. How do we go from somebody who's got really relatively little experience to somebody who's capable and confident defending themselves?
Well, I tell them not to do a traditional martial art.
Okay.
I tell them to get into resistance-based. I would suggest for them to actually do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but with one condition, that the school had an instructor or instructors there that taught stand-up, either judo or wrestling. I think if you just start your fresh training, you have to know that you're going to stand up. And the fight's going to be on your feet. And I think with enough training, like where you're supposed to have your hands and, kind of tuck your chin in to defend the initial punches, if you had a good way to deal with tying someone up, closing the distance, and then taking them to the ground, it's a pretty good introduction to defending yourself. If you teach someone, if they take like 3 months of boxing or 3 months of kickboxing, sometimes the problem is those systems just take longer in distance management. You know what I mean? Like if you look at any fight, what separates someone that knows what's going on is they control the distance. Like they can maintain the distance that they want. They either can close it or keep it long. Where street fighters, they don't have that savvy. They're either too far out and then they crash in, or they crash and then someone falls to the ground. So if you're asking me about, where I think someone like fresh, just getting into self-defense, I tell them that. I'd be like jiu-jitsu with at least wrestling in the school, like that they teach you takedowns, that not everyone starts on their knees, because then that's not good self-defense either. Yeah.
Wrestling's really key, I think, man, is, the more wrestling you have, the tougher you are in general, I think.
Yeah. I mean, even in like our last tournament, because, I'm a wrestler. I'm an old wrestling coach, and I used to shoot wrestle. But, I'm getting older now, and the guys are young, they're like, and so I was really, really fortunate, just through knowing some people and made some connections. The head wrestler at the university, and he was on the world team. So who better to get connected with than a guy that's teaching the team, right? So we did privates with him, and my students were like, well, you're a wrestling coach. I'm like, this is where hierarchy comes in, reality check, right? That was in the 90s, man. Like, so I understand where my holes are, and I have no problem to say, listen, like that's from here. I think we should all go. I'll take notes and I'll learn, and all the material I had actually taught them. We were doing some clinch sets and some takedowns and underhook setups, but it's just good to have it from the best.
Yeah.
And those little nuances that I talk about, we picked up a lot of details, and I'm a good coach, so I know what to look for. And I wrote down, every lesson, took part in the lesson. But when we went to the tournament, because we had been wrestling for 3 months preparing, no one got taken down. Everyone took everyone else down.
Wow.
Which showed us. Yeah, so that was part of our process. Part of the process to the fight was that everyone would get the takedown. And if you didn't get the takedown, you would reset. You would not accept the tumble or sitting down. And then if you did, but we did have an answer for the tumble, where you just kind of like tumble down to the ground. We had like a sprawl set and a hip down and a recovery. we'd gone through that process over and over and over, and it showed when we went to tournaments. So it was good. It was really, really good. So that would emphasize for me how important it is. Control the distance, control whether you are going down or not for your self-defense. Sometimes if you are in a better position, sometimes it's good to take the person down.
Yeah.
Like, you think I want to fight a guy that's 6'7", 300 pounds? Because he doesn't have to be any good to go, right?
Right.
I'd rather take you down, sit on top of your fat belly,
Yeah.
right? Let you be like a beach out of the water, like a whale out of the beach there, right?
Yeah.
So tactics, self-defense tactics, at least you would have more tools to determine, do I take the guy down or do I defend myself from being taken down? Where if you can enter self-defense that way with those kind of systems.
Now, you mentioned about, going to the best for your sources and everything, man. And I really feel like when I interviewed you today, man, I've learned so much just from talking with you. You are truly somebody who knows what they're talking about. And I very much appreciate the conversation that we've had, dude. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can reach out to my website, www.ontariotopteam.com. Or they could join my channel. Just type in my name, Samir Seif, or Ontario Top Team, and you'll get me on YouTube. Always trying to grow that channel. We're at 31,000. Before the YouTube Nazis came, I used to have like 64,000.
Wow. But
whatever their algorithms are, and of course Facebook. I like to have dialogue. I'm really enjoying this podcast. This is nice. It's kind of the first time I get to be like my authentic self, and just you made me feel like super, super comfortable, and I appreciate that. This was like, you're a good interviewer. This is like, you made me say things I didn't even know was in my head.
I appreciate you saying that, man. It's always a compliment. It's really crazy to sit down with somebody and just talk one-on-one, leave all the like pre-scripted stuff aside. And I really feel like I've gotten so much outstanding information that I wouldn't have gotten from you if I had went ahead and just had like a list of questions I wanted to hit. So, I appreciate you being real with us, dude. There's some guys out there that maybe wouldn't be as real as this, but again, that says, a lot about somebody's character, that they can just, this is what I think. Too bad if you don't like it. So
watch it. We can get challenges now. We're gonna have to find that island.
Well, they're gonna come for you, man. So I hope you're training. I hope you don't freaking get off during quarantine or anything.
No.
Samir, thank you so much again for coming on. I really appreciate it, dude.
My pleasure, man. Peace and love, man.
Peace and love to you as well. Guys, until next time, this has been Will Sherlin with Gutter Fighting Secrets and Samir Seif with Top Team. Is it Top Team Jiu-Jitsu, Samir?
Ontario Top Team.
Ontario Top Team. And I highly encourage you guys to go and check him out, guys. Please remember until next time that you are your first and last line of defense, and I will see you in the next podcast. Samir, cheers, bro.